So at first, actually, I would like to share one part of my research. I mean, my team colleagues, but we will explain the quality of life based on the urban analyst view. So at first, we do know that the regional tourism is very important in order to increasing the economic development, especially in case of regional development. And of course, the tourism activities can generate their income in local, and also they have some kind like challengings, not only for the debt management of in case of resources, but also when we're focusing on the tourism city, especially in case of traffic mobility, it's quite difficult to find some data because uh, when we going to study, we focusing on the study, for example, in case of transport engineer, we focusing especially on the network or the survey or something data actually. But in case of trip data from tourism side may be very difficult to collect due to the differences of the diversities of the cultures, nationalities, or languages. So uh, we found this kind of challenging, and then we try to quantify or try to explore about the quality of life in Phuket cities. And this graph show about the number of the visitors and tourism from going to the Phuket province. So you can see that after 2019, in case of COVID pandemic, so the number of the tourism is dropping, and then they start to increasing time by time after that. Looking back on the theoretical review, so we do some meta-analysis of the quality of life tourism cities. Interestingly, there are several studies focusing on the QOL or quality of life, but to integrating with the transportation quality of life seem to be limit scope. We use data from Scorebus data using from systemic reviews, and most of the quality of life focusing on material well-being as well as social cohesion, physical well-being, and so on. But we do think that most of the literature they're focusing on the local level or local community, which is the perception of the tourism may be overlooked. Then, sorry. Then look back to the uh, cities. The concept of city is like a kind of the regional transit development because the Elopolis come from the word aero, which means air, and polis is mean the cities. So it's mean all of the city of air. So in this case, in these research, they are focusing on the airport, which considered as a regional connectivity from Bangkok to Chiang Mai, from Bangkok to Phuket, from Bangkok to Khon Kaen, or etc. But if we look precise it about the idea itself, it's not only the airport and then through the airport and then the local economy will be generated. They need a lot of the policies like governmental policy, regional economic as well as resort endowment, because for each area they have the specific potential. But if we're looking on this activity from the airport aerotropolis, first one is related to air transportation or aviation. The second one will be related to airport related based industrial clusters, like air transport industry, like airport based service industry, hangars, logistics, uh, conservation centers, etc. So they are working together between the transport industry chain and manufacturing industry chain. The result of or the indicator for analysis about the successfulness of the airport are related to airport service. How many airplanes come to visit? How many flights, for example, how many passengers? And also something very related to the service quality, like number of the delay, the complaint from the customers. The second one would be related to land use activities or transport integration, because similar to railways, the airport is like a kind of the mid-mile transportation, not first mile and last mile. You have to take another mode of transportation to go to your destination. So that's why the connectivity is among land use as and destinations. And airport as an origin is very important to be considered. The third one is related to business collaboration. Looking on the big airport like Suranaree Airport, Noi Bai in Hanoi, or many airports. So you can see a lot of business cluster like logistics, freight forwarders, cargos. So they have a lot of business change that they require the specific land use policies to incorporate with the airport cities. And the last one is related to mobilities and transportations, as I mentioned to you before. This is the ideas of the electricity and how it related to the area of the land use. Then back to the quality of life again, we do believe in that if the airport is a starting point to generate the local economy or local incomes, and then we try to quantify about the quality of life. So in this case, we and colleagues, my colleagues, try to construct the theoretical framework of QL analysis. So we try to integrate the ideas of the quality of life, but we try to classify how stakeholders are involved or how behave each others. In this case, we classify by two sides. The first one is tourism side. The second one is community side. Critically speaking, we do know that the tourism side come to the the tourism side and then they spend money to get some service, and that service or that activity can generate the income to community side. So we can see some uh, positive benefit from each other. And also the ideas of the tourism side based on demand on the tourism side quite differ comparing to the community side. Generally speaking, the QOL focusing on the four aspects like material well-being, social well-being, environmental well-being, and political well-being, which is unlike tourism side. Tourism side focusing on how can they enjoy, how convenient, how can they attract to living because they're living in the short terms. But don't forget that when they are going to go to that cities, it means that they share the idea, they share the activity in the same cities, which has effects positively or negatively toward each others. And they have some several theories here, like this is tourism QOL, travel QOL, and urban QOL, which we do believe that the perception of each stakeholder may be differs. Again, the sustainable tourism or the idea of linkage between tourism side or how they interact between tourist side and community side can be explained by the two set of the theories. First one is social exchange theories. It's referred to that when they do something, they might expecting that they can get something as a return. So we call the social exchange theory. For example, if you are the local peoples, you do believe that you do know that the benefit of tourism come to your village is you can gain some income or some monies, but you may reduce or you may lose some privacy, for example. So it's a kind of social exchange theories. And the second one is related to the bottom spillover theory. It's like kind of sharing information when you perceive something and then you try to voice out to another group of stakeholders. So from this, we try to construct our own theoretical framework for QI analysis. Then, so in this case, we apply Phuket City as an study area. So normally Phuket is the tourism cities, right? And if you see about the geographical of the area, so you can see that this Phuket is like kind of mountainous area which has an island. So you can see, so you can imagine some limitation of the connectivities on that area, right? We do basic analysis based on the classic based on the origin and destination. So we suppose that most of people or most of tourism peoples will come to airport as a starting point to travel inside the Phuket. So based on the Ukraine analysis or OD analysis, so we found that the location between the airport and the city center or the urban area seem to be far. It may generate the demand of the local of the tourism to use the private vehicle, actually rental vehicles or that different or some kind like a graph, something like that. And this show about the distribution of the origin and destination in detail. So you can see that some origin and destination may be living in the same places. To quantify the perception of the QOL, so we use a spatial-based questionnaire surveys. In this case, we try to distribute the questionnaire based on the spatial characteristics because we do believe in that some of the differences of the spatial location may reflect to their quality of life. We use sampling size about 1,203 sampling size, which classified by three groups. First one is tourists, and tourists would be classified by Thai tourists and foreign tourists because we do believe that they may have some kind of differences about the perception of the quality of life. The second one is related to local business and the residents, like this. So this show about the local response from the QR in the case of residents. So the residents seem to be have a lot of age differences, but the income or the expenditure seem to be quite similar. It means that most of the respondents inside the cities as well as in the community urban areas seem to be considered as a low to moderate income and as well as expenditures, which quite similar to business side. Business side seem to be a bit uh, elders, but the quality, but the income and expenditure seem to be similar. But unlike tourists, unlike tourists, in case of the spatial location as well as the income differences, because some, as I mentioned to you, that some of tourists are foreign tourists. They may have higher income in their countries, and then they come to spend the money in Phuket like this. So the income range seems to be moderate to high comparing to the local peoples in this case. When we ask them about the trip pattern, so we can see that the trip pattern for each stakeholder, like resident, business, and tourists, seem to be different, classified by trip purpose as well. So most of the tourists going to sightseeing, going to leisure trip, as well as nightlife trip, because Phuket have a lot of nightlife destination like Patong or something like that, which is allied business and resident, which focusing on the working places like companies, uh, institutional building or public buildings. But regardless to any trip proposed, most of them prefer to use the motorcycles because they are feeling that they are feel secure and comfort. It's become like kind of main mode choice. In fact, there are some limitation based on the public transport right now in Phuket. Even they have some kind of smart bus, or in case of BM in the future, they will construct about the mass rapid transit. But maybe it seems to be like a bit far from this, and then they force or they push the peoples to use their motorcycles, high mobilities, etc. Right. But the travel time for each type of the trip purpose seem to be quite similar. It might be referred to the origin and destination as well. In this case, so most of people thinking that they can going to do their daily activity by using the motorcycles approximately for 20 minutes, approximately 20 minutes. But they might have some shorter trip like for decoration or shopping or working, etc. Because some people have to work from their own home. This is like this, so approximately like 20 minutes or 25 minutes or 30 minutes. But however, when we ask for that about the trip satisfaction, we found some significant difference between for the local people and the tourism. Most of the people who are living as a local people, like residents or the business group, they feel unsatisfied to their existing trip making. There are there are 2,000 trip because we have one respondent make one more trips, right? Which is the local people seem to be unsatisfied or slightly unsatisfied for the trip satisfaction at the whole. which is unlike tourists. They feel enjoy, especially in case of nightlife, in case of shoppings, which they're highly satisfied. But in some cases, like kind of leisure or working, they seem to be unsatisfied. Actually, leisure may refer to the daytime tourism destination, but which is quite different from the nightlife activities, like a pub, restaurant, a nightclub, for example, because most of them are located inside the cities, which similar to their quite close to their accommodations like this. So we can see some distribution of the destination by the trip. So you can see that most of the facility activities seem to be a bit difficult for walk. They prefer they need to. That's why they need to use a car to to mobilize from each place to each place like this. And also these results show about the centrality index based on each urban activity. So we can see that in case of tourism or in case of business or work, it seems to be have a major magnet node, which affect or force the people to going to visit to that areas. All right. And then we try to ask them about the perceived of quality of life as well. And this seem to be quite similar. But when we ranking about the differences between the high score and low score, let's say like less satisfied to higher as satisfied. So we found that they are the top three that affects to the range for each stakeholder. It means that if they have a high range, still it seems that to be they may have some variation there, like higher satisfaction about the travel to go to medical services, or some feeling healthy to travel. And another one thing is very interesting is about they are feeling some safe as well as feeling some kind of secure in case of tourism aspect. And the gaps, I mean the range of the perception seem to be limit. It means that people, regardless to any stakeholder, see in the same quite in the same ways. So these kind of things may be reflect to some insight regarding to their local perceptions about the quality of life. All right. So we, based on this analysis, we found that they have some challenges like a kind of the importance of the airfront smart cities, as well as how to quantify the quality of life, especially in case of the tourism side. And also we show that we found that some kind of local mobility like private or transit seem to be a major mode, which cause some highlight emissions as well as the carbon emissions. And this show about the future challenging thing based on my ideas, what view Phuket will see. First one is about the urbanized area might be increasing, but the income disparities from each area may be seen. Because the center area of the activity seem to be inside the city, while the outskirts seem to be not much attractive comparing to that city. So we found some kind of urbanized areas inside cities, and it might be effect to the income disparities. The second one is related to population change and the spatial distribution. So the trend of population change seems to be increasing as well as GPP or gross potential product. Unsurprisingly, the major sectors is related to service sectors because Phuket is one of the tourism site. But the agglomeration of the building seems to be limited, so it can cause a carbon magnet to let the people to go to the high density area. And the last one might be related to far area about the carbon emissions. Since we do know that the people is accommodating each others as well as the urban expansion, so we expecting that they have an increasing about the carbon emission, not only for the tourism side but also for their local mobility side as well. And those kind of things, we do believe that the future area of the tourism city may be faced, especially in case of the post over tourism phenomena. And so far, thank you very much for your kind attention. So this is one part of our research from the which grant by NRCT. This project is from the EHL project. So thank you for your kind attention.